My name's Barry McAnulty. Currently, I'm just a salesperson for Microsoft, but for the last 7 to 10 years working for Microsoft, I've done phone support, field engineering support, technical sales support. I just recently started as a salesperson for Windows 8 client, like they need any help selling desktop, but I have a specific skill set with state and local governments because I've been doing security for them for so long. So with that being said, I'm here to talk specifically about security as in any area of Microsoft, because ultimately part of my experience in that field as a community lead with security is being able to talk about anything from smart cards to federation to our forefront identity management products, our own premise security products, our cloud security products. So I'm going to touch on several things as it regards to solutions we're offering specific around security tonight, and you'll certainly be able to email me if you have questions about anything I don't cover tonight, and I can certainly probably try and cover it again or something different at another meeting if needed. I'm going to focus around Windows Server 2012, specifically in a couple areas as far as identity management go, around data loss protection, because that's a goal for every company is how do we protect our data, whether it's encryption of the data from where it goes from my hands to your hands, whether it travels via the internet, via email, via document, or via a USB device, whatever it may be. So how do we encrypt the data? Also, something new with Server 2012 is specific to the file system we have. And so the dynamic file system we have as part of Windows Server 2012 is more of a claim type security system. So what it looks like when we get into more details, I'll discuss that, is a federation or a policy looking claim that says, it doesn't matter where I'm coming from or who I am until it begins to investigate who I am on every request, right? So an example of that is, since I'm a salesperson for Windows 8, then part of my HR tag says I'm a salesperson for Windows 8. So you'll see that that's part of who I am. So when it goes, can Barry look at this site, and the site says anybody who's a Windows 8 person can look at this, then I have that claim as part of me. We're going to cover some of that. So, and that's different in the file system, because before it was all about groups and users and nested groups and local and global and universal groups. And that really gets to be a pain when anybody who's ever put a group inside of a group inside of a group and then forgot that group was inside that group and gave that group some other permission. Now this group has it. Really? Okay. So we'll move on. I'll just wave and go to the next. So for you that can't read that, is that readable, everybody? Then we'll go to the next slide. Basically that said, hey, you guys understand the problems that identity theft is no joking matter. We had somebody leave, I think it was in Charlotte Observer just last night or night before, that somebody's laptop got stolen from their car. Was it with the health department or something? CMS maybe? Yeah. So it doesn't matter if you work for a big bank or a small company, nobody wants their data out in the open. So the challenges of security, whether it's remote access or it's file security or it's things in transit, whether it's a document getting out in the open, these rogue, databases, whatever they call them in your company, that has, personal information in it. All right, so I don't know. I don't think I have to convince you that there are challenges to security. This is kind of part of the PR, the salesmanship. And, I don't go to any client or any state and local government client where they want to see more marketing. So I'm typically, coming from a technical background, I try and move past marketing stuff. So specific, we'll talk about automation, because we ultimately feel like if HR keeps your data up to date, which means it knows what department I'm in, then I should have access to things that I qualify for. And if I have moved from one department to another, then I should lose access to something, right? Because, if I go from payroll to HR, I need access to HR systems and not payroll systems. For whatever reason, that's really the biggest problem when I look at government agencies. There's always the one guy, and I think I see a few of you out here, who started out in MVS or the mainframe system and worked your way up into things with graphical user interfaces and never lost that access because you were the one guy that knew how to work on the green screen, and they sure weren't going to take it away from you because you're still that one guy who knows how to do something. So But that's still a bad thing, right? You know, you just continue to gain access and never lose it. So we'll talk about access controls and automation that deal with access controls, specifically from a Microsoft standpoint. Now, I can certainly talk about compete scenarios since I used to work for two of the largest banks in the city here. And as part of that, I was part of the network operations centers, and I handled quite a few other tools. I've done Cisco Works, I've done HP OpenView, I've done Tivoli, I've done BMC Patrol. You know, I was a lighting guy. You know, I made the lights turn red, yellow, or green, and as long as the lights were turning red, yellow, and green, they never called me. It's when they didn't see a light turn yellow and something went down, they yelled at me. So assurance and governance, I mean, how can we attest to the fact that something is working correctly? I mean, compliance and attestation are very big for the people who, you know, have to report on these things. And ultimately, you know, when I provide this kind of attestation to somebody, I'm not a report reader. I'm analytical, and I'm data driven, but at the same time, I'm an infrastructure guy. Even though I've done some coding and I've worked on some application development, I'm an infrastructure guy, and I'm not really you know, I just don't want to stare at reports. I mean, people that want to see bar graphs versus pie charts are great people too. It's just not me. I mean, I don't know who it is. And finally, you know, making sure that profile data is accurate and is integral to the function of automation, because once again, if we're making sure automation is taking place, so when you change roles, and all this is going to get back into like RBAC stuff, and we can only go over a limited subset of, you know, each technology and each industry and where RBAC would follow. I mean, people who are developers have one thought process when they come in and talk about RBAC, and for you that maybe haven't worked in roles-based access control, it's just a way of, you know, making sure that if you should have access to something, that it is, you know, known and properly given, and at the end of the day, that not only can I attest to the fact you have what you should have, that I took away what you shouldn't have, because really that's, once again, probably the biggest failure for every government agency that I've worked in, both here and overseas. I've worked for the federal government in Brazil, in Venezuela, Mexico, China, and I know I'm missing one, but it was a much smaller government. So, all right. Let's move. And so I'm going to talk about our future, just how we're going to enable that. Everybody's heard all the cloud stuff, whether it's platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, or software as a service. That's basically taking the same things. You know, when I talk to people about the cloud, I heard the guy at the last meeting, the December meeting, talk about what the cloud was, and he was getting, you know, at the end of the day, the cloud, when you look at what you control and what is in the cloud, it's just another connected data source, right? If I've got a user on premise, how do I, you know, federate or allow for access to just another server in the cloud, right? It's just, you know, we just extended the pipe, the infrastructure across the cloud, and hopefully secured the pipe, but at the same time, I'm just getting access to another data source. From my desk, I don't care if it's a server in this room or a server in New Zealand. I'm just getting access to something. And so we'll talk about how we're going to do that. Let's move on. I don't know about y'all. I'm already tired of hearing me speak. I'm sorry. All right. So symptoms, you don't pay enough money, you get shoddy work, and then you end up with a bad system, and your stuff gets out in the open anyway. That's what happens. People always ask me, is identity and security and management, why are these always, you know, right below the project never ends with SAP, but in between that and you know, even deploying something like Exchange, which is probably one of the most, I know is the most common mail system now, but delivering a mail system you can put up in 2 days, you know, you plan for it and get it done. Identity management, and people want next for that, and that's just not going to happen unless you're a brand new company and you've built something and it's very linear, you know, it's very small, or at least not very heterogeneous, I guess is a good word for it, because it takes time and it's expensive, and a lot of people haven't done it very well, including Microsoft at some point. You know, I've seen projects that go awry, and it's typically because you get a company that comes in who's never done one before, but they're a Microsoft Gold partner and they're willing to try it. Yeah, all right. That worked about as well if you have never done Tivoli, or you've never done BMC Patrol, or anything else that has some tangential effect on identity management. Let's keep flipping through here. I don't want to. So auth in, auth Z, these are all things, authentication, authorizations we'll talk about when we talk about briefly how, when I authenticate to a system, it says, hey, this is Barry. When I authorize, what can Barry do? So what group access do I have? What federated access do I have? So authentication, who I am, authorization, what do I have access to, and ultimately, what action can I perform, right? Because that's what we're really trying to get down to. Everything's going to boil down to who I am, what I can do, and what am I trying to do? What's the action I'm trying to perform? And then, if you're the pie chart bar guy, you want compliance and reporting on the actions that took place, and you want to know about what I did 7 years ago. All right. I swear I talk faster than your PowerPoint moves. And that's something. That looked a lot better on my laptop. But everybody can have a copy of this deck. Let me just scrub out my email address for you. But that's just a bunch of resource data where you can get everything I kind of touch on. And like I said, anything anybody wants to go deeper into, if we can get some kind of agreement that, hey, there's enough people that want to go deeper to anything, I can demonstrate just about anything I talk about because I've deployed and worked in, I support Active Directory, I support Exchange, I support SQL, I support Federation, I support smart cards. I have a server configuration in my house. I do a lot of this, so I'm not just a salesperson. I'm not the hair club president either, but I can do most of this stuff. So the lady who was here last time doing the CRM stuff. She was pretty detailed-oriented person. That's kind of where I think I fall in as well. So time to value. Nothing around identity is ever quick. I just want to be honest about that. I think people can appreciate that. I went into ExxonMobil about 2 years ago, and they were like, all right, tell us why we should buy your identity. And I said, well, I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be cheaper than the other guys, but it's still hard work. It's going to take a lot of time. It's probably not going to be easy. We got to get a lot of people together and stuff. Being brutally honest sometimes will win you some deals, and I think it's required at the end of the day. Integrate, manage. We're going to show you how we do that. I think it's to prove a point. Microsoft has had to step out of its realm. We don't own everything. We have to manage Linux. We have to manage Unix. We have to. A lot of people don't know we can do that. We haven't always done it as well as we should have. Truth be said, I worked in environments where I wouldn't have used this product that I sell now 10 years ago. But we've made a lot of strides, and we'll talk about some of that broad functionality. Let's go ahead and move forward. So the main points, what we're talking about today, that was a lot of covering of what we're going to talk about. But dynamic access control and file classification, those are the big things with Server 2012. You can just deploy one or two of these servers and start to get this kind of functionality in your environment and prepare for it. It's sort of like TCP IP v6. And, everybody's been preparing for it since like Y2K, I think. And yet we still are, translating and doing whatever we can to keep on these IPv4 systems. And that's great because it's easy for us infrastructure guys, right? Nobody wants to figure out IPv6, even though it's, it's got some Rain Man stuff you can do and figure it out. But Active Directory Rights Management, once again, that's just a service. Like many of you know DNS. DNS is just a service available in the cloud. Hey, I need to go to, Microsoft.com. How does it know where Microsoft.com is? DNS just translates your visual call of that URL into an IP address. Well, RMS is just a service that sits out there and says, who are you, based on who I logged in as, what rights do I have to decrypt or encrypt a document? And we do this as a kind of an integrated DLP solution. So people who haven't worked in DLP type solutions, that's just where we're going to look at how we take whether you're on a website or you're dealing with a document or you're dealing with email going back and forth and you're trying to figure out what kind of protections does this require. If I scan this document going through my email system, do I recognize it's got a social security number in it? Okay, it's got one. Maybe I let that go and just warn. Maybe I send an email back going, hey, you're sending out something with a social security number in it. Well, that's okay. Our policy doesn't say we have to do anything for one. But then you see 5 in the document. And now because we have 5 social security numbers, we're starting to qualify for a process within our internal company. And once again, these aren't technologies as much as they are processes, which extends the realm of your policymakers begin to designate how they want this to work. Because the technology, we're just changing numbers and variables in the system. It's up to you to design your policy. So Bank of America may want qualify anything 5 numbers, and Wells Fargo may say it's got to be 8 numbers. These are just variables within the same system of how we're going to protect something. Forefront Identity Manager is more of a user access system that just says, I can look at all these systems. I can look at a Unix system. I can look at a Red Hat, Linux, and I can look at Mac systems, and I can look at our Active Directory, and I can reach out to all these systems, and I can say that I have a user, and that's Barry, and he logs in, and he has access to all these things no matter what system he's on. It's just a way of user access controls. We'll get a little deeper into that and cover some of that. And then we'll have a Q&A for anybody who hasn't got up and left because I was still talking, can ask me questions. So, dynamic access controls. That's basically what I was talking about previously with the file system, the integration. You're changing the file system to start and interact based on user policies. And what I mean by that is to say that, once again, I'm Barry, I'm in the sales group, and so you may have different groups that I'm a part of, but that doesn't matter as much as a policy that's put together. So what you need to take away from that is that if I have 1,000 servers, and I don't want to have to go to each server and put a group, and then a group, and add a group, or do a GPO around groups, because then I don't know who's in a group and what's out of a group. All I'm going to do is write a policy that is a very, keep clicking through till something builds. There's going to be a variable-based policy setting that says, as long as this person is in North America, because I've worked with several companies that are multinational companies, and so if you're in different countries, there are different laws. And even if there aren't different laws, you may have different policies based on what company you're with that says, how they dictate what you can have access to. So as long as I'm in North America and I'm in the sales department and, my building or whatever, wherever they've assigned me as a building code, because, you can have these are all just attributes that pertain to Barry, right? It's going to check it. So as long as you're in North America, you're in sales, and you're we've got offices off Arrowwood Road, you're in the North Carolina zip code, then you can have access to this site. So there's no putting Barry in and out of groups, this and that. As soon as Barry tries to access this, it goes, well, he's in North America, he's in a sales group, he's in North Carolina, website opens up, document opens up. Whatever you're using for these policies, because it's a file system, once again, is going to open up. And that's why when we get to talking about user access control in our identity system, why that's going to be so important, because HR typically hires and fires people. They also change roles. And how do we get approvals and notifications and all this kind of stuff through? And how do we do something like that within a 3-month time period to deploy a system versus 5 years later? So that's going to be important, because as long as data is kept up to date, then access to information is correct. Let's go ahead and move it up. Let's go past that. So we'll talk about how this affects different content owners and everybody else. But I think it's, when I talk about it, well, oh, yeah. I don't understand that story, but I was just late. All right, so let's move on past this slide. I think I do a better job of describing it and talking than having you read PowerPoints. Once again, I'll make sure if you want this PowerPoint, or you guys send out these PowerPoints to everybody on the email list or whatever. Is that how it works? There you go. It's posted. Download. That's even better. Don't fill up our inbox. All right. So I'm going to talk about, well, everybody understands access control as far as what the problems with that. The problem is having a system that says I can control access on a Windows system doesn't necessarily control access on a Unix system or access on a Linux system, or even access on information on your desktop, where half of us keep all of our really important data, and then we lose that drive, or we lose that person. They don't bring the laptop back in, and we wonder where that data is. So moving on past that, I think the fewer security group things, I've administrative groups, I know what a pain in the butt it is. I think Microsoft has recognized that. We do a lot of DoD level work, and we look at systems where that's how they like to do it, based on who you are at the time, not always filling around for, like you're blind in the dark trying to figure out what groups people are in, because, that's very, it's worked really well, I think, in the past, but it's also been time consuming and not as productive. People look at the URL or how we constrain these variables. And people say with like one line of, whack whack target is, sales or whatever, I can accomplish so much more. It's so much simpler, and it's not really programming. You'll see if I come to do a demo of direct access or dynamic access control specifically, you'll see how easy that can be. But hopefully just from I have to hit a lot of things at a high level. But if anybody that wants to have me come back in and get very deep, do demos of any one particular things that we're going to talk about tonight, I can certainly do that and show you how it all integrates together. We can RDP to my house or whatever. Classifying data automatically, we talked about that. So a lot of people don't know that we licensed, which means we just actually paid RSA for their code. So RSA had a DLP solution, still has a DLP solution over the last 3 or 4 years. And what we did was we basically just licensed their information and we incorporated it. If you have Exchange 2010 today, you can write policies that says, I see email come in. If it qualifies, like we can put together a policy that says look for Social Security numbers, look for any kind of personal information data in Exchange, and automatically alert on that, then you'll know that you'll see that technology exist in our servers today. Just like the file classification system that's on our server 2008 R2 previously, that's now on our 2010 server, that said look on this server, and if it qualifies for anything, you can either just notify that it has something in it, or you can actually put some encryption on it. And so that tieback is around RMS, the Rights Management Service, which says the first policy recognizes something qualifies for it, right? So we can notify that this has Social Security numbers. We can tell somebody about it, but then what do we do about it? And that's where RMS comes in. We can automatically encrypt something. And so our encryption technology takes over and says, if need be, based on this policy, because you have been flagged for Social Security numbers, we're going to take this email, let it go out the door, but it's going to be encrypted to the user it's being sent to. So if that user doesn't have to be internal, then we're going to have something back from that user, like a live account or some kind of decryption technology where we can share out. And that's kind of our legacy technology. We actually have something very new coming out right now based around cloud stuff. And I'm not going to get into that tonight, but that can be another around information rights, around cloud we can talk about that's coming out as well. But that's where we're talking about DLP. It's going to extend into SharePoint, which is our web server. Hopefully most of you have heard about most of the solutions I'm talking about. Exchange is our mail server, so we got things in motion, things I'm retrieving on the web. Our 2012 server, of course, has a built-in file classification. So now we can build policies that says no matter where I'm getting this data from in our infrastructure, I can, A, notify that somebody has something that's flagging it, and then I can automatically encrypt that data so that if I go to my SharePoint site and download a file or go to look at a file, I can't send you a link or you a link and say, here, check this out, because it recognizes they're not buried, and it'll deny them access to it, which is a great way to share data, right? You can repudiate the fact that I looked at it, and you'll know that nobody else could look at it because they didn't qualify based on access rights that were given. Let's move on. A lot of this will take place. This is kind of an example I'll put together of groups, but I think everybody's, if you work for a multinational company or even a small company that has, law offices, can have one here and one in Dubai and one in Bahrain or wherever they may exist. If we start to expand this out, you'll see having multiple groups begins to really take its toll on you. Nesting groups, whether they're universal or global groups within infrastructure, can really be a pain. And so, can we go fast? Yeah. So as you begin to add departments to countries, and then you have groups within departments, the examples just continue to grow until you get down. Go ahead and build it out until you see. Yeah. So this is just an example of. Here I write member of U.S. security group and member of finance security group and member of sensitive security group. So one line of, if you're a member of any of these, if you possess any of these attributes, keeps all this nesting from happening. And then beyond that, it allows you to, this is a global policy. So you push out this policy. This is a policy across many, many servers. So if you happen to have 1,000 domain controllers versus 5 domain controllers, it's probably more impacting to you. But if you have a lot of file services or terminal services, these are the kind of things that make things go a lot faster. Sort of like when we went from NTLM to Kerberos, The reason that had a big jump was because of lookups. I mean, the way security worked in a URL request, your HTTP GET request, was significantly reduced. Your traffic on your WAN, which resulted in faster return times, was significantly reduced when we went from NTLM to Kerberos. Well, now we've even reduced, we feel like you're going to pick up a lot of traffic and a lot of speed using our newer file system simply because it's already going to know who you are. When I log in as Barry, just like with Kerberos, you got a token that says these are all the things you got, because what does everybody remember about if I had to call up help desk and say, hey, I need access to something, they give you access to it, what did you have to do? To log off, right? Log back on so you can get your new Curb token. So it's because your Curb token has that updated. Well, now I log in, I got all my claims. It knows I'm Barry. It knows I work for sales. It knows I'm in North America. So anytime I go to ask for access to something, they don't go and add something to my value. They go, well, sir, you don't qualify for the policy. We've got to go to the policy owner of the data. So if people like you are supposed to have access to this data, it should already be there in a simple, line of, I'll call it text for now. And it's a much easier way because now it's not me logging off or anything. It's because I'm still who I am. I'm always who I am. Now, I will have times where we update the claim for the person, but we find that when you update the claim to the user, there's going to be a lot less, there'll be a fewer examples of that versus updating the claim of what the data you're trying to access is requiring. Let's move forward. Once again, just my user claim that says I'm in user department finance, my clearance is high. So if the data requires a high clearance in finance, I'll have access to it. That's pretty simple, right? I mean, I don't have to go into any technical details. You don't have to be a Federation person here to understand that. Any CIO, any user should understand that. If I am who I am, and this is all I need to get that, then I should be able to get it. It's pretty simple. The policy itself may read a little more complicated to you right now, but that's just like, I don't know, it's not even, these aren't even expressions. For the developers in the room, it's not even like a regular expression. This is very simple syntax when we get into it, and you'll recognize that. And it's like anything, whether it's PowerShell or it's just DOS commands. When you begin to do something, the first time you use the help screen, you get better at it, and you get better at it quickly, because it's your job, and you just pick these things up. It's sort of like learning the IP addresses of servers. How many times did you have to ask somebody what was the IP address of that server, and about the fifth time, now you know all the IP addresses, like 50 servers, and you're some kind of Rain Man like I was treated. Let's move on. So it's not that 2012 is the fact that you can do everything you've done before relative to Active Directory is still there, right? This is just a new file system. You're just going to, just like with 2008, you're going to check a box and say, I want to use dynamic access control, just like DNS, just like WINS, if anybody still uses that. You just check a box, it adds that service to a computer. Now that service is in the computer, it's now a service within your domain, right? And you can begin to utilize that service, and you can perpetuate that service across 2 servers to make it highly available and so on. So very, very simple to deploy, very easy to use. You can begin to use control mechanisms that say, I always hear this, I don't want people to know something's in my environment and start using it while I'm testing it, and not everybody can afford to have a huge test environment. But at the end of the day, all of these things that you can activate don't require the users to know anything about it, and you can restrict anybody who's not a part of a group or have access to at some level to use the service that you're deploying for testing. Great thing. Classifying information using central policies that will go across all your servers, and this is going to funnel backwards to what access you have using a Windows XP device. And just for a public service announcement, everybody knows Windows XP support ends completely in 2014, February. I got like a little watch that Microsoft gave me that just has a countdown date. Like at the end of the day, I just throw that watch away because that's all it was built for. And go Windows 8. Yay. If you don't know the greatness of Windows 8, I will come back and talk about it. A lot of people go, oh, it's different. Let me just segue on this. I've got my grandmother using Windows 8. She's 70. Listen, it took me 10 minutes to explain it to her. I will agree. But every problem anybody has with Windows 8 is because, you know, when I first picked up an iPad, and I still have an original 1 iPad, I didn't go, where's my start button, and throw it down. It was different. And I can only ask you, as a Windows person, if you don't come to the table with expectations, you might be surprised. Because what happens is you expect a start button because you've been using Windows for 20 years, and that's what happened. It's like marriage. You come with expectations, you're going to be disappointed. I'm just saying. Let's not touch on that. All right, moving on. So as you can see, these are more examples of what it looks like to build these policies. They're not difficult. This is made for infrastructure people, because if you had to be a developer to do this, I probably wouldn't want to do it either. I'm not, you know, I built a Windows Phone 8 app and a Windows, you know, just, well, it doesn't matter, because that's the great thing, right, about Windows is if you build an app now in our app store, it works on the phone, it works on the server, it works on the tablet, it works on the Xbox. Mac, no, still a good product. I don't dog Mac. I love Mac. We make money every time they sell something. All right, so very simple to use. I'm not going to explain through this stuff. You know, if y'all want me to do a demo of stuff like this, I certainly can do that. But I mean, it's very odd. I mean, when you read it, it's like user.country equal, and you're going to have, you know, a country there. You're going to have, you know, it's going to say U.S. Department. It's going to say, you know, these terms are going to be, I think, obvious, and I think you'll get used to them really quickly. I did. Let's move on. How much time am I the only speaker tonight? Sweet, because I can talk all night. Also, like never mind. The deployment use cases, real easy to reduce the amount of time admins had to spend on, good Lord, how many groups do we need? And how many people got to be in how many different groups? I am who I am. Let's build a policy, and that's what you get. And if we need to build the policies a little stringent, you know, make it a little more explicit, then that's better. And then come back and make it less explicit or include you, be inclusive of what you need. But it works as an environment variable and not on a use-by-use cases, which sometimes is necessary, but I think a lot of the pain that we've felt from the past will be resolved with that. We can quarantine things based on that file classification. We talked about that kind of stuff. And then compliance, we go into encryption and data level encryption with RMS, and maybe we'll hit on that. I can't remember if I talked more specifically around RMS in this one. This is the same one I delivered at a KPMG summit a couple months ago in October to help bring them up to how processes meet technology. I mean, that's really where it ends. That's really the most complicated decision or discussion I have with anybody making a decision to purchase any kind of software we have or anybody else has and worrying about integration is, does your process meet the technology? Because in most cases, that's the biggest gap. More small things. All right, so this basically is just counting up numbers of people that have group policies and finance policies and where they all meet. And I think the big words say it all. Let's move on. So what happens when that data leaves the file server? That's where RMS kicks in. I think I've kind of talked about that a lot. We can get into more of a discussion of that, but ultimately the issue is whether that's leaving via email, whether it's leaving as a file on a USB device, is the data encrypted itself so that no matter how it's in transit, we're not talking about encapsulation or, you know, firewall stuff in this case. We're just talking about the actual, let's say a document, a Word document, and it's got important data on there. You put on there who can access it. And then it's going to qualify me to say, does Barry have access for this? And there's multiple things you can do around that with PKI, with certificates, but ultimately it's just going to first check that I'm Barry and that Barry has access to this. And then that document, you can take it offline if that's the policy you put in place. Some people say this document is so important that you need to check to make sure Barry has access to this document every time he tries to access it. So I've got to have some kind of internet access or network access so we can go back to the main system and make sure that I wasn't fired like 10 minutes ago. Explain that. Or you can say once you get your use license for this document, you don't ever have to check back again because maybe the document is only need to be encrypted for 7 days because then we release these magical numbers, says we made $1 billion, and now it's public knowledge and nobody cares that it's encrypted. Got a question?
What systems is this going to be good on? I mean, if you have Windows 2000, obviously it's not virtual XP, Windows 12 and Windows 7 still going to work?
Absolutely. So RMS is the encryption of a piece of document, and there's two things. So the future things we have going on, and right now, so we actually have like an Office. If you have Office 2003 Professional and up, it'll continue to work. If you're using Office 2000, I just feel sorry for you because that was a really long time. But Office 2003, so that's 12 years old. And up, I know it does work for. And we have like a little chart that actually says that, and it's always backward compatible. Now, the newer stuff that's coming out right now, we've gotten with Adobe, and we've gotten with Apple, and we've gotten with Google, and we've gotten with a couple other leading people to work out that we're going to start allowing people to build their application to inspect for this, so that if I have an app and I download it from an app store, whether it's the Apple Store, or the Windows Store, or the Android Store, hopefully. I don't know how those negotiations are going, but that no matter who the application owner is, that they're going to be able to go back and check against some kind of claim store, and that's going to be built into the application so that whoever that, we call it an STS, a secure token service. So like Facebook, you know how every time you go into any other app right now, it goes, do you want to link this to your Facebook account? And you just go, yes, and we go, thank you for giving us your data. I would not do that if I were working in a government organization, but that's an example of using a secure token service. And I'm not here to talk specifically about that tonight, but I certainly can if other questions get in that. But using any kind of secure token service and linking it.
How about hardware? I'm still pissed off that I have a wide format scanner and a wide format printer that doesn't work. But I mean, there's no drivers, things like that. I can see where encryption is really going to screws our hardware.
I don't know, because decrypting, once the document's decrypted, it won't affect your view of. So unless you got an encrypted poster, that's a joke. Right. But the encryption and decryption shouldn't be a matter of because once I decrypt it, that's some service saying I'm going to decrypt. I validate you are who you are, because until it's grayed out, you don't have access to it. So as soon as it ungrays out, as soon as we give you your level access, now it's just reading like any other system. So I don't think that's going to be based on that kind of, maybe I'm missing something that you're asking for. I'll talk to you later about it, but I don't see the encryption and decryption as a matter of just getting connectivity, and once the document's decrypted, you can then, based on what we allow you to do. So sometimes we encrypt documents so you can read it, but you can't print it. It could be that sensitive.
Well, it appears real obvious that printer manufacturers and scanners are not making drivers for printers, so you got to buy a new damn printer.
I don't disagree with that. I wish I could. I can't speak to that, to be honest. There's a lot of things I can speak to, but how we're getting you to buy more stuff on our product, yes. How the hardware manufacturers are, not. I mean, even with CPUs.
You could do the drivers for us.
I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go thumb wrestle with a print driver person when I get back to work tomorrow and go, look, I need some access into what we're doing with that, and I'll send out or have him send out a memorandum to me about, because I know we do work with a lot of vendors to make sure their newer drivers are in there, but ultimately, you're right. If you got if you got something from a long time ago, ultimately, I don't know that they're not saving you some time because of, however the readers work and stuff. We got to finish up here, but I'll talk to you some more offline. All right, so what happens when the data leaves the file server? That's another thing with encryption. We just got to make sure that we follow that data wherever it goes. So once you open it up, you can't just take the file and go, now that I've read it, put it on a thumb drive and give it to Bobby over here and he can read it, because that encryption stays with that document unless you have it set to expire. Let's build something out. And putting policies together that help. That's really, I would say 90% of the times you see problems with things being leaked out, it's not because somebody meant to do it. It's rare that it's a case of espionage or I'm just pissed off that I got fired. And rarely it's just mistakes. You know, I sent this to the wrong alias. I sent it to everybody by accident. Here, I just told everybody how much money I make instead of just my HR person. I don't know. How do we help people help themselves? That's really the biggest thing. That's why building policies to help people help themselves is really the best case scenario. I mean, did you really, a little pop-up, who's ever seen the little thing, do you really want to do this? Yes. Do you really want to do this? Yes. Do you really want to do this? Yes. You asked me 3 times. Because this is dumb. You sure you really want to do this? Yes. We can't, we can only make so many policy-based decisions for you. Ultimately, something will slip through. I have a picture of RMS protecting a document and somebody taking their monitor and putting it on a Xerox machine, because they're and, we can't stop some, people from doing stuff, but we can save a lot of problems. Let's move on.
That's a lot easier now that you got wireless devices.
That's right. I just run up with my wireless monitor. Look! It's not even attached to anything. Just got my tablet. All right. Adhere to compliance. Yep. Because you don't have a choice because we made it compliant based on what you're sending. That's a great thing for compliancy officers. Now they know that if something's getting out, it's not getting out through the channels they expected. Hopefully we have looked for the unexpected, but, there's always that. Yes.
One of the persistent issues we have with encryption is people leaving legal cases, other times where you need a master key for decryption.
Mm-hmm.
Are you handling that similar to BitLocker or something else?
It is. So very much like BitLocker. BitLocker is going to, and one thing with BitLocker, we store that in Active Directory so you can always recall it. With RMS, we can always go back and we have something called a super user within RMS. And so if you encrypt this just for you to be able to see it and we fire you and all your documents in there encrypted, we can get to that. We do have that. Let's go to the next one. All right, I'm liking these questions. So we can repudiate based on compliancy everything. You looked at this on this date and time from your computer at home because you accessed it. And this was the model of it. And we store all that in a database until like the end of database time. So, and I can say, you looked at it from your tablet at 4:55, and then you worked at it from your desktop at 6:15, then you looked at it from something else at 20. And it's all based, if you're using a Mac or you're using a different browser, it's all browser integrated. So we support Safari, Mozilla, Opera, of course, IE, Firefox. And, of course, we only want you to use IE because, yay us. But at the end of the day, we support all those browsers. Yes?
Is the identity static or dynamic?
Both.
In other words, if I'm here today, I'm here, and my identity is in this chair. If I go over there, my identity is different.
Not really, because they're just going to qualify you.
What it is, okay?
Okay.
What I'm getting to is spoofing. I can make this tablet look like a desktop. I can look at a mobile browser, or I can look at a desktop browser because I tell it that I'm a desktop, not because it is a desktop.
Mm-hmm.
So the identity is different.
Well, I would say the client endpoint is different at that point because we can do an inspection. We can use either ASP or Java to do an inspection based on if you're running Linux or you're running Windows. Use ASP or Java to do an endpoint detection and say you're using this browser. And even though you tell me you're using Windows, I know your operating system and everything about that system. We use a product on our endpoint right now called Unified Access Gateway, UAG. You may have heard of it or may not, but it does an endpoint detection. We can do that with every request that we can run endpoint detection. So we do have that availability. If you need that kind of level of security that does endpoint detection, we can do that. And then, but what I was qualifying that for when I said it is because at the end of the day, it's still checking that curb token for who you are. So it's not checking that we don't always. Well, we can. We can say you have to be on a domain join machine. Let's say that. And you have to authenticate with your curb that says, I'm Barry, and I put in my password. And we can even do two-form factor, whether it's using one-time passwords, smart cards, or digital certificates, we can require two-form factor. But still, no matter what machine you're coming from, if that's the real issue, if it's because you want to make sure it's a domain joined machine, that way you feel like you have a level of ownership, it's got virus protection and everything you want, inspection going on, quarantine it, and make sure it's a domain machine before you let them have access data, we can do that. But that's not part of just this encryption. That's part of the endpoint detection systems that we have. Because at the end of the day, I just care that it's Barry. I don't care where you're coming from. I'm encrypting this so Barry can look at it. I don't care if you're looking at it on your iPhone in Venezuela. As long as you're Barry, you can have access to it.
But see, that goes right back to you said before, Barry had to be in the United States.
Right?
If he's in Venezuela, it's still, you say he's in the United States? No. That doesn't work.
Well, when I was talking about that, I was saying what membership I had. Now, we can do like global detection and stuff like that, but that's not what I was alluding to when I said that. It's just what memberships I had. Just because I'm somewhere else doesn't mean I'm not still who I am. I'm still a salesperson in the North American department. I just happen to be on vacation in Venezuela with my good buddy Hugo, running a mile for cancer organizations. Right. Now, and if that's a point, that endpoint detection would have told us that, because if that's how we want to qualify it, if I'm a DoD device, and we do that as well for the DoD that says, hey, you may work for SATCOM, but you're in Germany right now and you don't have access to the same things you normally have when you're in Colorado. We do stuff like that. But that's not the same level of encryption I was talking about here, but we can do that. So, I don't even like saying that word, support for audit. Where are we at? Limit audit data, meet specific classification. That's where we just talk about repudiation, how I can come back and say you accessed it from here, from that machine. We do log what machine it was and what time, and that you accessed it, but it's not always the same to everybody. What the gentleman was asking about there, whether I actually gave you access versus logging the access. Simplify access control, implement effective access control. I don't think I need to talk more about that. Those are just big black words that mean something. Obviously, I don't need to define them. Let's go on to the next one. So, Forefront Identity Manager. This is probably our most complicated product in our entire stack. Rightly so. I've got to give you access to a mainframe, and I'm a Microsoft system. So how am I going to do that? I mean, here's what I always tell people when I talk to C-level people. What we have here is a system this is the Facebook, per se, of your access control. Something easily to read, easily to find. So I need to make a request that gives Barry access to these documents, to this website, to whatever you're trying to access control. And that access control may belong on a Unix system, on a Mac system. Well, I haven't seen any Mac servers. Unix system, whether it's Solaris, HPUX, or IBM's AIX, or whether it's a Linux system, or it's a mainframe, or an AS400. Whether it's in the DB2 database, or SQL database, or Oracle database, we can connect to everything. And so can everybody else. That's not the big deal. Oracle has connectors. IBM has connectors. Moving first name equals first name from one place to another place is not rocket science. I don't think anybody does that poorly. Let's go to the next slide. But what I see is, how easy is it to set up this user interface so that when I go onto it, and I can boot my machine and show you Microsoft's internal. How do I get access to something? We use a lot of groups today. If I want to get in the ping pong alias, so I know when we got a really hot tournament going on, based on my geo, then I can do that. How do I get access to that information? Is it easy to use? Is it easy for managers to access? Can I change my own cell phone number so everybody can have it, but I can't change my work phone number? How do I give, based on who I am, some level of access to change something about other people and deliver all that information? That's what let's build something out. This is what we're talking about, Forefront Identity Manager. We integrate your identity, and we're the only solution I know of that integrates, and it's very important these days, smart card, digital certificates with your user account. So what we do is we take your identity as a complete solution, we put it in a web format, and we basically say we'll give you access to all these things and make it look real simple. Now on the back end, it's not just that easy, right? On the back end, I got this synchronization engine that goes out to a mainframe, that goes out to a Unix device. And I got all these bits and bytes, zeros and ones I got to turn on, right? If you're going to have access to an SAP system, and it's cashier 1, cashier 2. These are all granular attributes. I can display that in a graphical form that's easy to read, and the person just has to go to their portal, and now they can get all the accesses and we put together some RBAC solutions around that. Let's go past this. Nobody cares what we used to have. We've had a solution since 1999. It wasn't as good as the one in 2010. All right, so that's pretty much all you need to say on that. Here I've got an HR database that says I'm Terry Adams. I have attribute level data in an HR system. I don't care if it's a flat file, Oracle database, SAP, no matter what it is, it's data that exists somewhere. Everybody knows data. We got an API. I can either get to it using native APIs, or I can write a little widget or a gadget to get into it somehow. This is not the difficult part. We come out of the box with HR for, SAP for, Lawson for, all these other systems. This is where data is housed that people consider important. Active Directory's grown to be a bit important in some areas. It has attribute level data. All these are just attribute level data sitting somewhere. And together, as we mesh this up, we want to make sure it's accurate. So that those policies I talked about are important, right? Because if you're not in the right groups and your data isn't right, well then you could probably have access to anything as your data's screwed up. So we consider that to be a little important. We also consider moving that data as required to the systems that want to utilize that data important. So let's build it out a little more. And all we're talking about doing is moving data from place to place, back and forth, building this metadata, right? This is you. This is all your data from the HR system, from the mainframe system, from the Unix system, from Active Directory. The culmination of all that data makes one user. And when we take these meta directories, we can sit there and we can say, oh, we got meta directory data from the HR system that says this is your cell phone number, and we're going to move it to Active Directory because we've got a gal or something, and we want to be able to give that data to you. Build it out some more. I want to see something pretty over on the right-hand side. Looks like me, only more cloudy. Yeah. No? Can we build it out a little more? Is it moving? All right, let's go ahead and cycle through it. You'll notice when it ends because it'll be a different slide. Okay, so here I was just talking about the cloud. All right, let's go back one more. That was it. All right. Here I was just talking about cloud solutions. Hey, in the newspaper tomorrow, you'll see that we just inked a deal. Can I say this? Yeah. So Charlotte Mecklenburg Systems, Office 365, done deal. Announced today. We just did the City of Chicago, Office 365. Those are just, cloud email, right? And all a cloud solution means is, hey, your email doesn't exist on-premise. Well, half of us use email somewhere that ain't on-premise. That's not a whoop-de-doo, right? Oh, but we make $1 every time you use our email, so that's big for me. But it also means that you have an account in the cloud, right? So Office 365 is basically your email and an account. And that account really should just be another connected data source. I got HR, I got an email system, I've got LDAP, some LDAP resource, and I've got Active Directory. All these are just connected data sources. And same with the cloud. So now when I start talking about management in the cloud and how I manage tablets and cell phones, and we can do that so that you know that when I install an application on your cell phone, that's your device, but I'm going to give my application data. Let's say I'm Bank of America, and I invent my employee Bank of America Windows 8 app, and it goes on my cell phone so I can check something that's secure. When I fire that employee, I don't give me your cell phone, but I don't want to have to worry about finding him. So we can remotely just remove that app from there. That's how we're going to do that kind of stuff. It's just cloud. It has nothing to do with identity. I just wanted to say that. But whether it's a cloud-based identity or on-premise, should be all the same connected stuff. Let's move on. So identity, how much time do I have? Am I already over? It's 7:30? Does anybody know what time I'm supposed to leave? I got, Oh, breaks, yeah. 10-minute break. Sweet. And then, so nobody looks embarrassed when they want to leave real quick. I don't care.
No. You have 10 minutes more.
Oh, I got 10 minutes more. Don't leave. Because then you can take a break. I'll go faster. I'd have been done if y'all listened faster. I swear. All right. Let's go through a little faster then. Let's see what's next. Identity management, real easy. I got a bunch of pretty slides up here now that I'll actually point to. Let's go to the next one. But you see role-based access. Yes, we can connect to mainframes. We can do it. And so it's easy for me to use Linux and Unix and Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. There you go. Pretty portal. I got how, based on who I am, I'll see more or I'll see less. Just that simple. Am I a manager? Am I a user? Am I an audit person? When I click on a user, is it all grayed out but I can see it? Is some of it grayed out but a few things I can change? Based on who I am. Authentication. I'm Barry. Authorization. I'm a manager. Every action I perform, whether I change something, I can do two things. Notify somebody that's happening, require approval, multi-level of both. So if I want to give you permissions to something, and I come out here and create a request that says, I need a request to put Sarah in this, give access to this solution, and I don't care if it's on a mainframe, I don't care if it's Unix, I don't care if it's Windows, I just need her to have access to something. And all that stuff just synchronizes. And we make it easy to read, and it looks pretty. You can have a picture of you up here, and I would have done me, but not so impressive. All right. And the big thing there's 5 basic things about identity. 1, that data exists everywhere, right? So we got to move data back and forth, synchronizing data. 2, the rules around what the data should look like. Because not every system wants to use first name, right? Or last name. Some people use SN. Whoever thought of that? That's terrible, right? Yeah, that's Microsoft. All right, so, because SN is obviously last name. All right. So, surname, I know, right? Come on, I'm Irish and I don't use that. Who's that? I got a coat of arms and don't mean nothing. All right, so, anyway, so what does the data look like? And I need to move, during these rules, as I move this data back and forth, do I want to change something? Do I want to add it together? Because there's already a John Smith in every company. There's 5 of them. Hector Rodriguez, there's 5 of them. How are you going to move that data? Do I have to add something? Do I have to add a 1, a 2 to it? Because these are not always unique pieces of data, especially when Global Santa Fe and Transamerica, these 2 big companies were merging. How did I merge 2 companies quickly? Because they each had 10,000 users. And when I synchronize that data, I have to build policies and rules so the data comes together. If I have overlapping existing data, I have to manipulate some way. So identity is about moving the data back and forth, making the data look like what you want it to look like. We have workflows that say, I'm going to add users, remove users, modify users. I'm going to add groups, remove groups. So all these access controls, adding and removing users. Then I have policies that say, if I'm going to add a user, is it a contractor, is it a full-time employee? Are they hourly or salary? So all these policies, interacting with workflows to move stuff around. As you can see right here, this is grayed out. You can have examples of drop-down boxes. All these are little web pages where I come up and say, make this a drop-down box because it's cost center or something. In cost center, just use this text or just use this spreadsheet. It's got 10 cost center numbers in it. You got to use one of these 10s to drop down. So you can free-form type things, drop-downs. They can be choices. There's a lot of things, but it's all just web-based, and it looks friendly to your users, and then it's going to control everything that they access to different systems. Let me just finish up this, and then I'll come back to take all the questions. Let's go through here. So it's a pretty portal. It integrates to Office. So if I'm a manager and I want to approve somebody's access to something or reject it, I can do it straight from my cell phone on the golf course. Nope. 4. Windows Phone, Apple phone, Android phone, shouldn't matter. So it's all browser-based. We put apps out there now, approve or reject, built into Office. So now people are using the web page to administrate everything they need to administrate, or Office, 2 things that we feel like people have come accustomed to. And if you haven't got a chance to do that with, please do. Let's move forward. So just basically building the system so it's really easy to use. I've deployed it myself several times. It's just portal-based solutions that, like I said, at the end of the day should be graphically pretty to see, easily to understand, and then on the back end starts making all these things move back and forth. I'll get into some other things. I am feel a little rushed. 10 minutes to cover a very complicated solution, but it's just web-based, SharePoint look and feel. Integrates in Outlook, which just means you need to install something on your computer, right? If you want these ribbon bars integrated in Outlook, you got to install a client. We also have a self-service reset password service that says, if I forgot my password, I changed it yesterday, I forgot which dog I made it, I can just hit reset password. It'll prompt me to answer these questions that I already, I can prompt you to answer these questions. What's your favorite color? What's your mother's maiden name? You've seen all these things before. What manager do you hate the most? Start building the list. And then once you've answered all the questions, and we have all this way to randomize it, and then if you use it in an extranet scenario, you can use 2 form factors. So you got to put in your smart card to have your digital certificate, or do one-time password so you get a text on your phone, then you put in the text, then you change your password because you're at the Marriott, you're not on the network, so you trust it less. Let's move on to the next one. This basically just says what I've been saying the whole time. Go ahead and build it all the way out and go to the next slide. It's basically just going to say when I get a request and I answer the questions, it'll take my password and change it to all these different systems I'm connected to. Remember how we talked about we're starting to manage these users in all these different systems now because I'm connected to them. So not only am I bringing this data back and forth, but now I get kind of a simplified sign-on technique because now I can take the password you just changed and put it as your user password. So when you go to Rumba to access your mainframe, and I can make your password the same, so at least you don't have the same, or 12 different passwords. You have the same password on 12 different systems. You still have to use something, a different client to get to it, but it's the same password. Let's go to the next one. Web-based look and feel. Question 1 easily could be, what's your mother's maiden name? It could be as many questions as you want. If you really want to aggravate your users, make it like 20 questions. But then you can say randomly pick 5 of those 20 questions, and then you only got to get 4 out of them right, and you can change your password. You can change. Those are all variables to change. Next. Like installing, isn't it? All right. So this is just an example of a workflow. So we hire somebody, HR. Go ahead and flip all the way through it. You have to click a couple times. And then it'll say, okay, manager approved it. So now emails went to the manager saying, okay, your user's been approved, has access to all these systems. Plus our certificate manager is managing, your smart card. I put mine in my bag. Microsoft, everybody's got these badges. You can hit doors. Most of us have seen them. And now they have chips integrated in it. So if you're using smart cards, we can provision those as well. And all that's in one management system. Let's move on. And most important part, if you get terminated or retire, which most of us look forward to doing, we can remove you from systems. So user deprovisioning. That's a really big seller, I'm just telling you, because there's a lot of people who get hired and very few people seem to get fired from all the systems. And it's just moving data back and forth. Let's just do that. All right, so let's start taking questions while there's something in the background. This is all just going to be moving data from one system to another. That's just for people that want to stare at PowerPoint. What was your question, sir?
If you go to the forefront, facing a multiple domain scenario,
Uh-huh.
would it be possible to still be using Active Directory users and groups in one domain and forefront in another domain that are linked?
Well, it's not an either or. Forefront's like a BI, business layer. It sits on top, and you can have 100 domains. In fact, at Microsoft, we have like 16, it seems like. But you can't ever seem to flatten it down to 1. But you're sitting here just using a connector to Active Directory 1. You don't have to have trust between these Active Directories, and I can still manage users from all those different Active, because I just have a single connector that says I have the rights to look into your Active Directory and pull information back and create if needed. It's a service account, and you can absolutely have multiple domains and multiple connections to multiple Active Directories and still manage. And there's some that you don't even have access to, and that's just things you go through where that's like deployment. I'm going to deploy to the first domain, then to the second domain. You're never done with all of them in day one. You're never done with every system in day one. If you're lucky, you get done with all your systems, period, because a lot of people don't ever get identity management on every system. So synchronization rules, just provisioning, attribute flows, data cleanup. I talked about how you want the data to look. Really 5 steps to identity management: moving data, make the data look like you want, workflows, authenticate, authorize, and perform some action. With every action, you can notify or require approval. Management policies, how do we handle it as a business? And then we didn't talk about sets, but when you log into a web page, that's not the same as logging into Active Directory. You don't have to have Active Directory to use this system. I've had people use eDirectory or Sun Directory. Yes, sir.
In a large domain, for example, we have currently in Active Directory, we have collisions. I'm going to really
Sure.
So then we have, an engine that runs the RMS, or not RMS, but the
Identity.
whatever. In Active Directory, there's an engine that looks for name collisions.
Yeah.
Has rules to rename things that require. My question is, if you go to FMS, do you have a single database? I mean, what happens when you have 1,000 users?
Well, so that's part of the rules and provisioning. So our meta directory, which is a big SQL database, basically says I have user Barry, and I already know I have Barry, so I can't have another Barry. So you have rules in place that says, well, if I have another Barry, it needs to be Barry, use the middle name, or it depends on how you're naming attributes. So you just build a rule that says if I've got one John Smith and the next guy is either John L. Smith or John Smith 1, or you have some complexity put together and prepared for that. And you're not always prepared for everything. So what happens is you handle 90% with automation, and you got to eyeball like 10% of it. It reduces a lot of that. And then you continue to build out these policies as you recognize. Believe me, I've had people use Chinese characters in a database. We didn't know what to do with that, so it's like. And then, we're a multinational. We have this deployed in almost 100 countries. So believe me, working between multilingual is much harder than multi-name. I mean, we got some serious.
Yeah, the question, that's really not a question.
Okay.
Is, are you talking ultimately to one SQL data? I mean, Active Directory, I can create a user here in North Carolina when someone's creating a user in California.
But it's still the same force, same Active Directory?
Yeah, but it takes a while for it all to catch up.
Okay, so you're saying somebody's going to build the same unique SAM account name or SMTP? Well, that's not allowed. You will have a problem. But, yeah, we can still manage that ultimately. But
The question is, in Active Directory, I am authenticated to my local domain controller.
correct.
Right? And then the replication happens, and then centrally we see the collision and resolve it. Is FMS not talking to a local server, but a common SQL server?
It's talking, first of all, when you set it up, you actually say, I'm going to use, you can either point to specific domain controllers, or it'll use the nearest one to it based on geography. And so replication does matter, but at the same time, we might handle some of that, but that is already handled with Active Directory. It's going to replicate and it's going to solve the problem. We're talking more identity management between multiple systems and not just a singular system. But yeah, we can still handle rules. So if I want to come in, let's say today everybody's login name is first name, last initial, and we want to change everything about that. We want it to go first initial, last name. You're going to do that manually. You're going to do like LDIFT or CSVD and try and manipulate everything. That's something we can do with an identity management system, and that's based on rules and policies. So we're not going to interpret we're going to let Active Directory handle Active Directory, and we're just going to feed from the Active Directory server we have. So we're not interceding between replication. Let's see if I'm done. Am I out of time? All right. So that's cool. I talk about, I think identity management was the last part of this slide, but I can do federation. We can do, if you have something about Microsoft, I pretty much can do, I'm not trying to, I'll be caught off. I'm not as deep at every product, right? But I'm pretty good at most of our broad spectrum of products, whether it's our server, our client, our cloud, anything identity, anything server. So that gives me a lot, and I do have a lot of experience in quite a different breadth. So if you want to make recommendations to the site or to whoever you're used to contacting, then that's good. I don't know that I can do every month, but I am a salesperson, so if it helps us sell, I don't get anything out of Charlotte, by the way. I only cover state and local governments. I don't even do our own government for Charlotte. I do because I'm local. I help out, but I don't get, it's not my territory. I handle Mid-Atlantic and Northern, and, they just love a country boy in New York, let me tell you. Yeah. All right. Thank you for your time. If you have questions, you can approach me. I'll stay a little while longer. And if you want something specific, you want some in-depth demos on any one of these particular systems, because there are different RMS, Server 2012, I can do some interaction, identity management, or something I didn't talk about today, do that. If I'm not the person, I'll bring somebody, because I've been on site here at Microsoft 9 years. So I know somebody. So let me know if you need something specific, because I'd love to help you out.